Hello, this is my recording for Module 2, setting up a new ALEKS course and creating custom objectives with deadlines. So I am going to walk you through that process. So from our ALEKS homepage, we're going to log in with our instructor credentials. And from our homepage here, with the administrator settings that we actually have the capability to create courses, copy courses down to other instructors, and so what we're going to do here is build our master course, if you will. So we're going to go to Instructors Administration, click on New Class, and we have a few different options here. What we're going to do is create a new class. I will be teaching this class, and it is Intermediate Algebra, as the criteria states. So we're going to go ahead and select Intermediate Algebra, name our class Demo Course for Intermediate Algebra. Section is like Demo. Now we want to select our start date. When is the course going to begin? I will set this up as we are setting up an 8-week inter-session course starting on October 30th. And our end date is when the class finishes. We'll put it out to the end of December. There's an option here for accessibility options. You shouldn't have to worry about this so much. Just be mindful that there are some settings you can adjust should you expect any visually impaired students to be in the class. And then we, as instructors, have the capability to turn on or off the graphing calculator. It's default set to not allow the graphing calculator to show up. So we're going to go ahead and create our class. And we want to build a customized course. We want to customize it. So we click on Customize this course. And we want to integrate the ebook. So we select Integrate ebook. And we select our Miller Intermediate ALEKS course ebook. And we have the option to choose whether we want the ebook to be mandatory in the course, optional, or totally disabled. I would recommend leaving it up mandatory for students to access, but it's up to you to select what's appropriate. And here, if we want to plan to use objectives and modules, we have the option to select that, which we will. Use objectives, and we're going to set up our own custom objectives. And we have the choice to put due dates or to leave it open, and we want to have due dates on our objectives. So we're going to go ahead and continue. And here is our empty shell, where we now will start to begin and select the certain topics that we want covered within each module. So we go down here, click on New Custom Objective, and it brings up the list of all of the topics organized per chapter within Intermediate Algebra, and we can manually go in here and start to select those particular topics that we want to make sure are covered and worked on. We have the choice to drill in at the granular level based on each individual topic, which we'll do for this particular module, Chapter 1. Okay. And so we've got our module 1 set with 6 topics, and we will go in and create a few more. We also have the option to select the whole entire chapter, which you may or may not want to do that. It may end up piling in a lot of topics. It's just a matter of figuring out what content and what particular topics within each chapter that you want assigned and students working in. Okay, we're going to name this module a little bit differently. Full chapter. Number 2 is created. Okay, we're going to go in here, create chapter 3. We'll do the same thing for time purposes. Whole chapter. Chapter 4 we'll name partial chapter 4. Polynomials. We're going to drill in section 4 and select accordingly. Okay, done. And then our final chapter we're going to add is we're going to jump ahead and do chapter 10. We want to cover some topics from a few different sections. Okay, so you get the idea here of how we select the certain topics that are going to be included in our ALEKS course module. We're done. Okay, so now we have our 5 modules, and because we set them up to have deadlines, what we want to do is make sure that we assign a end date or due date for the assignments for when their work should be completed by. And the nice thing about this is, as you can see, if we set it out 1 week, it's automatically actually going to set up the next module to start the day after. Now, something to keep in mind here is that we generally recommend that you keep a pretty tight time frame on the learning modules that you have, obviously depending on how much or how many topics are assigned. Because if you put the deadline out farther than a week, say 2, 3, or even 4 weeks, something like that, what tends to happen is students typically will not work on their work until later in the week or the time frame when it's due. And if you set it out farther than a week, or even 2 weeks sometimes, all of that work is actually going to end up compiling. And then when a student ends up logging in the weekend before it's due, they're going to find that there's far too much work to actually be able to complete in time. So we would recommend that you keep your deadlines consistent and also not stretched out too far so that we can make sure the students are completing the work that they need to have done on time and not letting their work build up. Okay, and so for week 5 here, this would typically be, that would actually be a holiday week the week before. We'll go ahead and put it out 2 weeks to accommodate for the Thanksgiving holiday. The 10th. All right, so we've got our 5 modules that we've created. And keep in mind that on the right-hand side here, we have our post-objective progress assessment. All right, and if you remember what we spoke about before, these come every 5 hours and 20 topics that are completed by the students. Or they also come every 10 hours and less than 20 topics for those students that may not be in there working or just are struggling more with the content because they aren't as proficient in the topic. So we can deselect the respective post-objective progress assessments if we don't want those to pop up, but we're going to keep them in place. And then down here, we have the option to select whether or not we want the next objectives that come after that particular objective is completed to become open and available, or if we want all objectives in the pie to become available. It's up to you to choose how you want to do it. If you select open all objectives, students are going to be able to go into their pie chart and work on anything that they want from there. Okay, so we can set that up either way. And so now where we are brought to is the screen that allows us to set up whether or not and how we want our prerequisites chosen. And typically I would say that you always want to go with the recommended settings here. Just know that you can also change the prerequisite topics on the right hand side and customize that if you'd like to do that. You can do minimum, you can do no prerequisites. What we're going to do is go with the recommended, and then we can actually pick and choose here within the respective module which of these need to be drilled into. Okay, and then on the other thing that we want to we generally recommend setting is your prerequisite topics go into goal topics. So we want to make sure that we select that here. And then as we look into the topics for the module, if we click on the details link under each of the review topics, the column is actually going to show the recommended prerequisites for each topic. And that outlines these here. Okay. So now that we've got our prerequisite settings selected accordingly, we will go down and we will go to continue. And now we've got our ALEKS course for the most part with the topics, the objectives, the deadlines assigned, and it's here. And the important thing to remember then, what we want to make sure that we're doing is that we want to have all of these settings and content locked in before class ever starts. We don't want to go in after a class has started and change these settings, because that's going to throw a lot of things off if at all possible. We want to avoid doing that. So we want to make sure we're in here, we have everything set up the way that we'd like it. And keep in mind that the initial knowledge check at the beginning all your students are going to take is going to be based off of the objectives that were selected when we went through and created our modules. Okay, so we've got our course. We're going to click Save. And now we have our ALEKS course. The course is complete. It's been created. Here is our code for the class with all the respective information, start date, end date, who's teaching, with our content settings down here. All right. And something cool to be mindful of is after we create our ALEKS course, on the right-hand side, there's going to be an automated class syllabus that becomes available. And it's in HTML or PDF format. So if we open this up, what happens is it actually is a itemized outline of exactly how our course was set up, with the due dates, the topics, and it's just a very organized and structured way for us to see what are we going to be covered. This looks like a gigantic module, but you get the point. And so that is our class syllabus. So that is how we go in and we create a custom ALEKS course. Thanks for watching, and I welcome any feedback you have. Thanks.